Welcome back. This is Daybreak, and thank you for staying with us. The hashtag on X is Citizen Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. On my immediate right is John Kiarie, the lawmaker representing Dagoretti South constituency. Good morning. Good morning, Abdikadir, and it's a great honor to be here in the new year. Here as well. Happy 2025. Happy 2025. Happy New Year. Asante. Gladys Bose is the woman rep, Wasingishu County, the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly. Good morning.
Good morning and Happy New Year.
Lovely having you here as well.
To all Kenyans and to Citizen TV.
Thank you so much. Robert Mbui is the lawmaker representing Kadiani constituency. Good morning.
Good morning, Ayub, and Happy New Year too.
To you too. And Senator Richard Onyonka is the representative of Kisii County. Joins us this morning as well. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Let's begin, ladies and gentlemen, with what's been happening in the motherland, and beginning with the front pages of the publications. The Daily Nation says the drums of war. President William Ruto's close allies have in recent days made strongly worded statements vowing to secure him a second term in office in 2027, talking about time limits by whatever means possible, echoing past reckless declarations by politicians in Kenya that have plunged the country into post-election turmoil. And the excerpts of what Farah Maalim said, CS Hassan Ali Joho, Tiati MP William Kamket, and Kapseret lawmaker Oscar Sudi, all captured on the front page of the publication. Coming to you first, Honorable Robert Mbui. Hardly a proud record for Kenya's politicians, is it, when it comes to the moderation of their language?
Well, it's unfortunate, Ayub, that we can reach a point where, the people that have been given responsibility to manage the country can be threatening the future of the country, which is our youth. I mean, that's what is basically happening. All these leaders, and when you notice, I think it is not. It's not in isolation. It happened before, many years ago, that the people that were surrounding the then president would be constantly, at war with the public, and that's what has happened now. It's unfortunate, and I think some of these people, they're bordering on, on serious incitement. For example, the member for parliament for the Dab, Farah Maalim. I mean, the kind of things he said previously. Remember, he had talked about, killing Gen Zs when they went to the streets to demonstrate and fight for their rights. I mean, and he's still not stopped. I think some of our institutions are failing us. Some of these people should have been held before courts and probably locked up and the keys thrown away. These kind of comments cannot help the country to grow, and especially considering the kind of problems and difficulties Kenyans are going through. So I think it's something that we need to handle as a country for once and for all.
Yeah, and is this a reflection, Honorable Kiarie, of the momentum that is gradually and continuously slipping away from the political class here, with no regard for political affiliations, but rather their language, their conduct, and their role in representing the Kenyan people?
We're in a very different situation, Abdikadir. It's unprecedented where we are as a country. And I would imagine that even when we converge in such a setting where we have, 4 lawmakers, we are utilizing national frequencies, airtime, maybe we might even want to rethink how we do our conversations. Because at times, subjective conversations are not taking this country forward. We need to now ask ourselves, even the conversations that we are having, even in forums like this, are they objective conversations that would take the country forward? For example, you bring up the issue of utterances that are public utterances. Of course, it must be condemned when a leader will get up on a platform and say unpalatable things in public. However, even as we are condemning these politicians, we've got to ask ourselves, how did the country get to a place where we are competing on a race to the bottom? That we are encouraging ourselves to have debates that degrade ourselves to a level where we cannot even recognize ourselves as a country. How about if we got such forums, we were discussing ideas on how we would take this country forward, so that where government is, government cannot be averse to criticism. It cannot be averse to critiques. But whoever is criticizing or critiquing, what is that better alternative they're offering? And I want to imagine that people like the Honorable Richard Onyonka were old enough to live in a time when the country was even in worse situations like this. And I'm talking about places like the Moi era. But if you look at the opposition in that era, they would organize themselves into a quasi-government where you have a shadow attorney general, you have a shadow prime minister, you have ministers holding dockets. And when they come to the government for a critique, they will say, you have an idea in housing, for example. Your idea fails on certain and certain parameters. However, we have a solution that we are offering, and the solution we are offering is that where you are going, you're inadequate on a certain area, we are proposing this. However, coming back to the issue of utterances, I've got to say this without any fear of contradiction, that there is nothing that the Kenyan politician is doing that everybody else is not doing. And that does not justify it.
For example?
Today, the doctor of today is not the doctor of yesterday, a doctor who is committed to their hypocritical oath and so on. We've got to call out malperformances all around. We know today there is a doctor who will diagnose you according to the level at which his construction of the house has gotten to. So today, if he's preparing to put out the slab, your diagnosis will be according to what he would like to reap from you today. We have teachers who are not up to the standard of which a mentor or an instructor should be up to. We have lawyers who are chasing ambulances and stealing from the dead and people who are injured out of insurance money. So this conversation cannot be held in isolation. It's a country conversation.
All right.
And the last thing I wanted to say about this is, of course, we have to talk to ourselves about what system of governance we have chosen. We agreed as a people that we want to go the democracy way.
Okay.
The democracy way has its parameters. And when we talk about democracy, we've got to have the limits that into which we are confined into, because when we lack those limits and imagine that everything is an absolute freedom, then the opposite of it is anarchy, where everybody is a lord unto themselves.
We'll talk about freedoms.
Yes.
So let me quote what your colleague said, Oscar Sudi. Let it be clear, he said on Saturday in Baringo County, that President William Ruto is going nowhere. Even if his votes will not be enough, we will add our votes. You talked about democracy. This truly is undemocratic statement, is it?
I would want to, again, repeat that rather than be subjective, I would want to be objective. For example, the Honorable Sudi is an individual who would even make an appearance to such a TV station. I do not hold brief for him, and I would not want us to limit a whole national debate to an individual.
The point is not about career.
Yes.
We are talking about a fundamental issue, and this is where a matter that the Constitution has substantively dealt with. It's very simple. You agree with this statement?
That I do not agree with it. But now I was saying, if we become subjective, we will discuss Oscar Sudi for the next 40 minutes. But that's not the business. Oscar Sudi is an individual who has articulated himself an opinion. An opinion does not become a fact. Me and you know that if we have to change term limits in this country, there are processes that have to be gone through. We have a whole deputy speaker seated here and a practitioner of law. She will tell you that to change the constitution, to extend term limits, there are certain processes that we have to go through. And we have even made it so in our constitution that we have to carry everyone along for us to be able to do that. We will have to go through a process of public participation. We'll have to go through the process of changing our constitution for us to get there. So for us to now go subjective about an individual will be to use this airtime to discuss someone's individual opinion.
Point taken. To be clear, it's a matter which we have put in our constitution, and it's only fair that we talk about term limits and other issues that are constitutional.
But we also know what we need to do to change the term limits.
About, of course, and you talked about democracy, and in a democracy, it's good to have healthy debates on how we govern ourselves.
Brilliant.
Senator Richard Onyonka, do politicians understand and read the public mood?
Oh my God, I think that's a very good question. Some don't. Some don't, because they have never felt that public good or public view of our behavior mattered. The feeling I have right now, and what many people and many Kenyans are looking at, is that we are behaving recklessly. I really want to sympathize with my brother KJ, because you know KJ is very difficult to defend government. But at the same time, I know it's very difficult to talk about colleagues. The truth is, Ayub, And I've heard the argument that KJ has really tried to make, and that is that people are changing, the standard is lower, and therefore you expect this behavior because the world is changing, and therefore the behavior of these people. No. Farah Maalim has been around this legislation in Parliament for the last 20 years. He's been with me. He's been a speaker. I mean, Joho has been one of the most senior politicians in Kenya. He's been a governor. All right? I may excuse Oscar Sudi because he hasn't been there long enough for this. Kamket has been there from the time I joined Parliament. So you are looking at old hands getting into the old habits, which are the habits where some people believe that whatever you say in our country and whoever you say it to, both ways, whether it's from us in the opposition and what we say about the people we disagree with, or whether it's those who are in government and how they talk about us. When we are, like now, there's a broad-based government. I have not seen government really being critical to the political lines. I mean, now I find my brother Kaluma saying how being in the broad-based government is sweet. And he is willing to shop in his shop, which has been opened. And some of us who are on the other side can wait for as long as until the owners of the shop are able to open for us those shops so that we can trade and pick stuff from there. The insensitivity of leadership, Ayub, is what is shocking me. That people don't understand that we are in a cyclical system right now, a political cyclical system where we have the opposition which is working with government. We have some of us in the opposition who disagree with some of the things happening in government. You are caught in between trying to be an honest Democrat who's going to tell government what the issues are. Government feels you are being too harsh on it because you shouldn't. After all, government is doing well. And therefore, if you are criticizing government, you are seen as a subversive. All right, then you have taken the youth and you have demonized them, and here you are now either abducting, killing, or chasing after them because you are saying they're too harsh on the government, and in fact they're being personal against the president. That's not what Kenya's problem is. We are dealing with the symptoms of the problem of Kenya. We should be dealing with the disease of Kenya. I want Kamket to tell me, how can we stop cattle rustling in Samburu than those areas where he comes from, where he has the experience and he knows what we can do? That is what I expect him to tell me about. That is what I expect him to tell the president. I expect Joho to be telling the president about blue economy or its minerals and gold. He should be telling. I expected my minister Joho by now to have told us what the Kenyan mineral policy is, what the government intends to achieve in the next 1 or 2 years. And now what do you have? A minister of the government who takes a loudspeaker and he starts pontificating politics instead of talking about policy.
All right.
So we are mixed up. The only part I agree with KJ is that we are mixed up where leaders who are supposed to be the guardians and the mentors of the young generation so that they can see that the country has a problem, yes, but you handle it differently, that we have challenges and we need to talk about them. It is now declaration of war. So you have two groups of people, those who are fighting for their interests and whichever interest, and those who are fighting against those interests. And right now, the way it looks, the political class is fighting Kenyan people.
Okay, and is your party leader, Raila Odinga, an exception? He called the Jubilee government, President Kenyatta and William Ruto, the deputy then, words that equally are not of moderation. Driver ni mlevi, conductor ni mwizi.
We have continuously used words and terms which depict each other of either being a thief or being killers or being whatever that you want to call. At the same time, then once we look at the language we're using, look at the violence we're expressing publicly, and then you are busy telling me that the young generation which is out here that is watching our behavior, you expect them to behave as angels and saints.
So that includes your party leader?
Absolutely. In fact, let me clarify, the whole political class has refused to listen to itself. We have refused to understand that even when we are supposed to criticize the government, we must do it firmly, we must do it intelligently, reasonably, and make Kenyans understand. And government must know that when we criticize government, it is not because we are anti-establishment, anti-government, and hate the president. It is the very simple question. Right. Like me, that is my job. So if something is going wrong, like in the health sector, I'll tell the president, your people are now stealing. That's why they are fighting about medicine.
All right, we'll come to the specifics about the flagship projects of the Kenya Kwanza administration. Just a reminder, President Ruto on the 4th of January 2023 said, I am an open book, so you can read me as you so wish, as long as the criticism is objective and fair to him and his administration. Honorable Gladys, when can the politicians summon themselves on the importance of moderating their language and their conduct in public?
I think you must think about it this way. Politicians are individuals. They actually are the representatives of the people. So if you look at a marketplace, there's all sorts of people there. People speak differently. People have a way that they deliver their messages very differently. Each politician has a different brand. And they could be saying things that I could say the same thing, but I would probably deliver it differently. And you must know also that politicians, it's also about catching the headlines. Mm-hmm. So I think they've done well. You've actually put them on the headlines. You know, they have to say something controversial, something that may sound almost unreasonable or threatening, and they will make the news. So they actually are speaking to you guys as the media, as their audience. Yeah. Because look at us now. You've actually made this the first opening statement of a discussion on national television. This is exactly what these individuals were trying to catch, and they've succeeded. So you're also playing into their game. So they are playing to the media.
Okay, how would you otherwise put then, if you were to use different wordings, a matter of term limits that
I think
Kamket talked about? For example, he said we manufactured a president for 24 years. This county knows how to manufacture a president to survive for that long. If they joke, we can tell you to extend past the 2 terms.
Someone can say that, but as a lawyer, I know that to extend term limit, you've got to change the constitution, and it's no mean feat. You've got to go to a referendum. So I think trying to make so much out of it, that is just talk that maybe people in the village will buy, you know. But I don't think that somebody who knows how a constitution is structured would buy that. I think when you talk about yeah, it's just over-dramatizing it. I think this is what you say when you are moving crowds and so on. So I don't think that I would take it so seriously like you people have to put it on the Daily Nation headline news. I think when people mention about Ruto must go, even those people are just trying to catch headlines, because the only way to remove a president is through an election or through impeachment, and you have to have the grounds for it. We know that. So don't worry too much. I don't know how this made it to headline news.
Yeah.
So yes.
Honorable Gladys, it's worrying, is it, when a cabinet minister says that we cannot allow a few youth to destabilize the government and portray leaders in bad picture. What we are telling those leaders, we also have our youth on the ground, and they should not think they know the game more than we do. We can also unleash our team. What does this portend for national security in light of the abductions we have witnessed, and a country on the brink always when we head to the elections because of every politician hanging around with a group of youth to objectively push their political narratives? I mean, doesn't this speak to our state of security?
You know, when I came to this show, I did not come here to come and comment on other people's statements. I want you to ask me about national issues and let me give my honest opinion and comments and professional opinion on what is happening in the country, but not to come and discuss somebody else's utterances. I think if you want to discuss the utterances of these people, you should have called all of them to this show, and then they can respond to you on what they meant or what they think. But you can't ask me to think in C.S. Joe's mind or Farah Malim's mind. I think really, I would even be lying that I know what they're thinking. So I think you should invite them to the show.
Yeah, fair enough.
In fact, because they're on the headlines, they should have been on this show to explain themselves.
And I'm here privileged to be sitting down with the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly to comment on a national matter.
But this is not a national matter. These are utterances.
Okay.
These are utterances of individuals. So I want to comment.
Which utterances which are actually against the very existence of the state.
We might lose the point.
No, but what my point has been.
We might lose the point.
I just want to. What I'm just saying is that I speak factually on things that I know. Mm-hmm. So if you tell me about term limits, I will tell you what the Constitution says about term limits. If you tell me about a removal of a president, I will tell you the way it is done legally. If you tell me about dealing with people who abuse their freedom on the social media, I will tell you that we have an Act of Parliament is supposed to deal with that. I will also tell you we have the National Cohesion and Integration Commission that's supposed to do its job. So that I will speak to. But I cannot comment on this utterances of an individual.
All right, and fair enough. Last question here.
Especially because I'm not their lawyer.
Okay, fair enough. Besides being the representative of the people of Western District.
Oh, I didn't know they broke the law.
Yeah.
No, I'm just saying. You can actually hold a brief for someone if they haven't broken the law. It's like the way a family during a funeral can have a spokesperson or a family lawyer to make comments. You don't have to be
I was doing it in jest.
Yes.
Okay. Fair enough. One last question, though. Because, Honourable Gladys, you deputized the Speaker of the National Assembly and a critical arm of government.
Yes.
Which has been given immense powers by the Constitution that any other institution doesn't bear. For example, it's only Parliament that can impeach a sitting president, can censure a sitting cabinet member. A final question on this, because you said you don't want to respond to what individuals have said. For example, then, do you agree with the killing of 5,000 Gen Zs by Farah Maalim?
Again, those are utterances of an individual.
Would you agree?
And those are just an utterance. The action hasn't happened.
Okay.
I would comment on it if the action had happened, but it hasn't happened.
Do you condemn?
Sorry?
Do you condemn?
Of course, you know that killing people is a crime.
Okay.
Yeah.
Honourable KJ, you had a point.
But it hasn't happened. That's what I'm saying. There's no cause of action.
I was saying
those are just utterances.
In the back and forth, and even the humorous tongue-in-cheek insertion by the Honourable Richard Onchoka, we might lose a critical point that is being raised by the Deputy Speaker. The Deputy Speaker is asking us, we have a newspaper in front of us, and even we are looking at the headlines, we can see what has been over-dramatized, to use her words. The same newspaper has on its front page a header that tells us that grade 9 learners face congestion and teachers shortage. If you were to unpack that discussion,
I'm happy to engage.
You would be talking about the country Kenya, you would be talking about our young people, you would be talking about the future, and by extension talking about every other sector, because education prepares our learners for the workplace and for the future. Now, if we were to open up such a discussion, I know it does not make a good headline. It would not even be good for TV viewership. The discussion would end up being a bit academic, and there would be suggestions that would be made, and that does not make for good prime TV. I think we as a country have decided that we want sensational news, because sensational news gets us excited, it gets us out of the... And even an individual who would be having an evil plan for a country, even a leader themselves, would be thriving in such a situation where our eyes as a country have deliberately been moved away from the ball. And every sector is playing to that game. And unfortunately, even our media, as demonstrated this morning. Think about it. Yesterday, the president was in Dagoretti South constituency. His business was to hand over 24 new classrooms that he has built in a school that we started out with NGCDF and some money from the ministry. This school is the first public primary school in an entire ward, meaning that since this country became independent, since Ngando became a ward in the Dagoretti South constituency, in the capital city of Nairobi, it is our generation, the people of Dagoretti South today, who are putting up the first public primary school in that ward. When we opened that school, and what necessitated the president to make a personal donation of 24 classrooms, is because the day we opened that school, on day one, we had 2,500 learners reporting. The situation there doesn't have to have gotten to that place. In that entire ward, The only institution that had public land is one school called the Nana School. How has it taken a republic 61 years to provide a primary school in a ward? And this carries everyone along, the politicians, the board of management of such a school, and even the public and the community. And that is the point I'm trying to make here, that even in the framing of our headlines, we are probably missing the point, because media has such a powerful role. And especially when they take up their responsibility seriously, they can do the role of agenda setting, and we might be able to change the conversation in this country and possibly even the sentiment.
Thank you. And the first agenda, just a reminder, of the year 2025 here on the broadcast was on education. So we talked about learning, we talked about schools reopening, and we had comprehensively covered a story by my colleague Brenda Wanga last night in our Prime News of how the learning across universities will be impacted following the court order on the new funding model. So to be fair, we make editorial judgments based on the importance. Education is a right. But when we get back from the break, ladies and gentlemen, we talk lives and the rights of Kenyans and the state of human rights in the country, and as regards to what has been happening in the past few weeks following the abductions that we had witnessed in the country and the responses given. That's an important conversation. By one we had planned. So we are coming back with that after the break here on the broadcast. The hashtag on X is Citizen Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir.